Hey friends, it's me, the Ebony Otaku, the well-rounded nerd. I'm doing my nails while I record this video because I'm talking about Ruyi's Royal Love in the Palace for Valentine's Day. Because we can't be traditional on this channel, and this is the kind of a love story that I'm all about. you know, um, but beauty treatments and all of that were a very big deal in the imperial harem. So I thought it'd be a good time to do that while I discuss with you. Not really a get ready with me. Just more of a I'm doing two things at once, and that they seem to coalesce. Not sponsored, but I'm using Mooncat nail polish that I've recently discovered. This one is the Lost Polaroids. This is Midnight Drive. This is the Abandoned Boardwalks. And then I also have their base and their top coat, which seem to work really, really well. I actually have it on my toes right now. I have this in a really nice lime greeny color on the feet. Um, yes, I'm using three different colors of nail polish. This is why I've learned to do my nails at home because getting your nails done professionally now is it's not cheap. I used to go every couple of weeks back when it was $60 to get my nails done, but now it's like a $200. I'm like, well, we're gonna do other things. So in this Tansu chest that I have, that it's my nail beauty kit. It's only got nail stuff in it. That's it, and it's full. So I can do polygel, I can do regular gel, I can do acrylics, I can do dip. Name a way to do your nails. I can do it at home. But I chose to combine these two things, and again, not sponsored. I really like their nail polish. It's as good as they say it is, and I cannot wait for that Darth Vader collection to come back. Um, but these are a couple of things that go together: beauty and being part of the harem. So I thought I'd talk about the harem while I do this, but a different kind of a love story. So I've attempted to start a series about Ruyi's Real Love in the Palace a couple of times on my channel because it is one of those dramas, historical dramas, that just gets me right in the feels. Because it is based on people, places, a time that existed. But to do that, I feel like there really has to, you can't just dive right in to a story like this. You've got to understand the groundwork of what you're watching. Good fiction connects us to the real world. Good fiction. Even, when it comes to something as fanciful as like a Lower Decks or Rick and Morty, they're cartoons to begin with. So suspension of disbelief, right? They are not real people. But the characters in the story have been built in such a way that you can find connection and commonality with them and find characters in that show with which a person identifies. That's why I love Lower Deck so much. Beckett Mariner's not a fictional character. Beckett Mariner is me. So it has ended up being one of my favorite modern properties. But when you're looking at fiction that is also historical, we also have to look at it with almost an ambivalent eye. And what do I mean by that? When we're looking at history, things that have happened and places that did exist, people that did exist, even though it's a fictionalized account, we have to remove our modern and cultural sensibilities that we have today. We're looking at a story that was hundreds of years ago. These people long been gone, and the society they lived in was much different than mine. Even modern China today, which is where the story takes place, it takes place in China, in the Forbidden City. i- It's not the same China that exists today. So even if I was of this heritage, I still couldn't look at it with the same critical eye I would the world around me because this is a world that just simply doesn't exist anymore. It is a particular period of time that had a particular set of rules for society. And because of that, I always remember to tell folks when we dive into this type of fiction, not to judge. It's easy to do that with something like Warhammer because it's Warhammer. It's 40,000 years in the future and in space and God Emperor and all that good stuff. That's not what this is. Had a little bit of nail polish left, so I gotta get that scraped off. This is based on people, places, a time that was very real, but we will approach it without judgment. Yes, their world is different to mine, but different than does not mean worse than or better than. It simply means different than. And I always try to look for those lessons, especially when it comes to women's stories throughout history that help me understand what does it mean to be a woman in the modern world, to appreciate the sacrifices that women before me made so that I could have the kind of lifestyle that I have, and to respect the heritages that exist all over the world. They're all interesting, they're different, and they're all beautiful because we are the sum of many parts. None of us is a moment. We are a culmination of so many experiences coming together to create the beauty that is you, to create the beauty that is me. So, with that little bit of disclaimer out the way. Let's talk about Ruyi's Royal Love in the Palace. I just dehydrated my nails with some straight up rubbing alcohol. I stole one of these from my husband's office. He 3D prints in resin, so he needs like an alcohol solution to wash all of his models. I just took one for mine. He'll replace it. They're like $1 a piece. And then my nail polish remover is the Pronto Professional Remover. This good stuff right here. Again, nothing is sponsored. This is just what I'm using. I feel like that's what you're supposed to do when you're doing this kind of thing. And I'm going to start, of course, with my base coat. I'm going to do one hand at a time as I talk through. So, oh, this doesn't have to be shaken. Ruyi's royal love in the palace. Notice in the images that I'm going to show you of the harem and of the emperor, there's one dude and a bunch of chicks. That's just how it is. Again, no judgment. I will have to give credit because none of these are my original images. I found them on Google Images. They are press photos from either the Chinese Ministry of Tourism or they are press photos from the filming of Ruyi's Royal Love in the Palace. I don't own any of this. I opted to do it this way versus using clips from the show because the algorithm doesn't seem to favor me when I try to use show clips. So I'm doing this instead. I am a corporate trainer by profession. She knows how to use PowerPoint. So different kind of video. So hopefully the algorithm gods will be nice to me on this one. We'll find out. But let me give you a little bit of background on Rui's royal love in the palace, just as a show where it came from, and then we're going to dive into really understanding the circumstances that these women are living in. And throughout the year, probably once a month or so, I'll get a little bit deeper into each of their characters because they're all in extraordinary circumstances. I have my own nail dryer that all of them deserve to have their stories told. So I'm looking over at my screen to the right because corporate trainer, I've got multiple screens here. But I'm reading from the Wikipedia article about Ruyi's Royal Love in the Palace. Is a 2018 Chinese television series based on the novel Inner Palace, The Legend of Ruyi by Liu Lianji, starring Zhou Jun and Wallace Ho. It chronicles the marital relationship between the Qianlong Emperor and Empress Nara. That might sound familiar if you have seen any of the book reviews on my channel. A couple of authors out of China, I think they're Chinese American, but An Chi Min and Lisa C, they do a lot of writing about the harems and the periods of foot binding in that part of China. And An Chi Min in particular has two novels, Empress Orchid and The Last Empress, that are the story of Empress Nara, who is Yihonala of the Yihonala clan, and what happens to her when she's brought into the palace. Um, and the names, our titular character here, Ruyi, who is, main lady here to the left, or I guess your right, my left. She is a descendant of Yihonala. She's in her family clan. Um, so there's a lot of connectivity here. It is a sequel to the critically acclaimed drama Empress in the Palace. If you've never seen Empress in the Palace, highly recommend. It's only 6 episodes, but that's also 6 hours of viewing because they are not short episodes by any means. But I definitely would recommend checking that series out. You can watch it in a weekend. It's one of them. Oh, I got the flu. I need something comfortable to watch. Watch that. It's so good. The series aired on Tencent Video from August 20th to October 15th, 2018, during which it was streamed to more than 18.9 billion times. Wow. It later went on national broadcast and aired simultaneously on Jiangsu Television and Dragon TV from December 25th, 2018. While the plot and characters received mixed reviews from viewers, the series won acclaim for its exquisite props, lavish sets, and stellar cast. It has a total score of 7.5 points on Dolban, which is, kind of like what is it that we use over here to score movies that has completely left my brain and somebody's typing it into the comments as we speak. Rotten Tomatoes, thank you. Rotten Tomatoes, thank you, person yelling at the screen, for psychically giving me that information. I heard you. Awa has heard you. But yeah, so locally it didn't have a huge reception, but it is beautifully made, and that's one of the great things about watching stuff in a language that's not your own. I don't know if it was bad acting. Because I don't speak the language. So I'm already transported into a completely different environment and world because of that. So yeah, I loved it, and I'm not surprised it won a bunch of awards for the costuming, because it the costuming is absolutely divine. These girls are gorgeous. I would have volunteered to be in the movie just to get a costume. Not movie, TV show. I actually have this show on DVD because I was watching it on Amazon. I have Ruyi on DVD because I was watching it on Amazon, and I was like halfway through, and then it disappeared, and I was like, so I just scrambled to find it. And then after it was delivered, it came back to Prime, but that's fine. I don't care. I kind of love having it. The story follows Empress Nara and her life during the Qianlong Emperor's reign. Originally known as Ulanara, King Ying, the niece of Empress Ulanara, or Yihanala, she is childhood friends with the fourth prince, Hong Li, who is this gentleman here who grows up to be our emperor. Um, and she is chosen initially to be his primary consort, meaning she would have been the empress. However, when the Yongjing emperor exposes Empress Ulanara for her role in helping the third prince Hongxi become a usurper, Hong Li is forced to rescind his decision and take Fuka Longhua as his primary consort instead. King Ying is banished from the palace upon Empress Ulanara's house arrest. Hong Li compromises with the Yongjing emperor and is allowed to take King Ying as a secondary consort in exchange for also taking Gao Zhiyue as a mistress. All these women are set up to hate each other from the very beginning. Notice that there was a lot of interchange of names. As we read, that is because your given name with your family, your married name, and then your royal name, those are all different names. So there's a lot of interchanging. So basically what happens is this young lady here, Ruyi, we're just going to call her Ruyi, not all the other names. Ruyi is the niece of the previous empress. So she's technically in the royal line, by proxy, by being a niece there. She has grown up as a childhood friend of one of the princes. Now, notice that it said he was the fourth prince. Um, it's a little bit different than European monarchy. In European monarchy, it's the next son and sometimes daughter, depending on what country it is, who's going to be the next ruler. That's just how it is. Not so when it came to societies in Asia and in Africa, where there could be multiple prospects, because those were cultures, not all. I don't believe in Korean culture or Japanese culture that polygamy or polygyny was ever a thing. Harems were not part of it, but I could be wrong there. But they didn't take multiple wives. Mistresses, no. Wives, no. I'll be honest. This is where I have some respect for ancient Chinese culture, because in cultures where there would be a monarch and his bride, they would have affairs all over the place on each other. And if a child was produced, the child wasn't acknowledged, but everybody knew. Everybody knew. In fact, that kid and its mother could get exiled for the how dare you have relations with the monarch. But in China, it's like, no, I'm just gonna make you a wife. We will acknowledge this out loud and proud. African cultures, Middle Eastern cultures, same way, because plural marriage was allowed. all of these children and whatnot are usually acknowledged. I said usually, there's an exception to every rule, but we're going to pretend there's not right now. But he's the fourth prince, and the reason the emperors are allowed to have multiple wives to produce many, many offspring is honestly, it's a rudimentary form of eugenics to see which combination of genes is going to produce the best specimen to rule. So just because someone is chosen to be the empress, the number one wife to the emperor, does not necessarily mean that her children are going to end up being the heirs to the throne. Could be, may not be. Because if emperor has a baby with another one of the women in the harem who produces a better specimen of manhood, that's the one that can end up being emperor. And the woman that has the baby that becomes emperor, she's going to be promoted to empress. There can only be one emperor, but there can be multiple empresses at one time. Oh, copy. You see how the relationships just keep getting more and more complicated? So he's chosen to be the next emperor, and he actually loves this woman. He's grown up with her. He knows her. That is one coat, y'all. Look at how bright my nails are. Right? Um, he loves her. He genuinely loves her. He wants to be with her. He wants her as his first wife. And to my knowledge, there's only been one emperor of China who only ever had one wife. Um, and she's actually written about in Lisa C's book, Lady Tan's circle of women. That emperor and his wife are included, and luckily for him, she produced a son. Luckily for her, she produced a son. That's a whole other story. We'll talk about another day. Because he put it all on one woman. But there's only been one emperor who only ever had one wife because they are encouraged. They're the son of heaven. The son of heaven's vitality cannot be contained to one bed. Yeah. But no, as many women as possible to produce the greatest specimen for being the next emperor as possible. And I just made a mistake on my nails. I've never talked and done this before, so mistakes are going to happen. Ah! Just made it worse. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to finish this nail before it dries. And then I'm going to take my acetone and clean that nail and be more careful on my other hand. That's why you have real good acetone. So if you do something dumb like this, you can fix it post haste. I had to order this acetone though, but worth it. Not a problem. That's why you keep all your nail stuff within reach. Don't put it away. Keep it where you can get to it. So I'm going to have to base coat that again. Yep, this is my base coat. It's new. The base coat's blue. So, not a big deal. Not a big deal. First world problems, friends. First world problems. Let me get this base coated again. I'm going to stick my hand under the dryer so that I can get the next coat on and get to my second hand. So, think about what's been set up here. They are not set up to be friends. These women aren't buddies. They're all in competition for one man and to be the woman that produces the heir. And it gets even more interesting. So let's just talk about all those names we just reviewed. Here are our ladies, our central characters. So all three women are promoted once Hong Li ascends to the throne as the Qianlong emperor. Qi Ying becomes consort Jian, Long Hua becomes empress, and Ji Yue becomes noble consort Hui. So all of their names change. So here's Ruyi over here. You look at his face. He don't want any of these women. He is not interested. Can't be bothered, not interested, don't know you, don't want you. Um not for me, honey. But he has to because there's more than just marriage at stake here. What's at stake is the future of the kingdom. Each one of these girls represents a family that wants prestige and power. It's so interesting because in so many of the novels and historical documents I've read, it would lend you to believe that girls had no value in this society, but that's simply not true. Without girls, there are no sons. They had a different value. The way the ancient Chinese culture was set up was through Confucianism. Confucianism is an order for society. It tells everybody what you are supposed to be. And the ultimate representation of society in China was the imperial family. The emperor had a part to play, the empress had a part to play. The emperor runs the empress runs the household, the emperor runs the country. So it's her job as empress to keep peace in the harem. Um, Funny thing though is the Chinese symbol for peace is a house with one woman in it, and the symbol for chaos is a household with multiple women in it. So yeah, choices were made. Yeah, what the oxy eternal moron is that? Um Yeah, yeah, just let that sink in. But all these women are set up to hate each other. They're not set up to be friends. They are set up to be rivals. They are set up to try to maneuver themselves to be the one that the emperor favors. But that's not how this is supposed to work. He's not supposed to favor any of them. I'm going to do something fun. Watch this. Turn on laser pointer. He is not supposed to find any of them to be number one. But all these girls here, they know that this is the one he loves. There's a target on her back from day one. And honestly, as you watch the story play out, if he had really loved her, he'd have let her go. That's what he should have done. He shouldn't have married her. He should have let her family arrange a quiet marriage for her outside of the palace to go on about her life as a woman not of royal lineage. But there's a lot at stake here, and he's going to be the next emperor. So if he says he wants something, he can get it. And if he says I want a particular woman, he can. When the emperors or future emperors were ready to choose a wife or wives, basically every girl who has gotten her monthly moon water, translate that, um, is eligible. So you could be betrothed to someone else. Um, and if the emperor says, I want that girl, your other marriage is now canceled. You're going into the palace. Doesn't automatically mean you're going to be a bride because there's still a whole bunch of purity testing and washing and ceremonies to go through. But that is the power of the Son of Heaven. He going to get what he wants. So going back over that history, this young lady here, Ruyi, her aunt was the previous empress. She is a descendant of an empress, so good enough to be the wife of a prince. However, her auntie does something she shouldn't have and gets thrown out. She tried to have a different prince usurp the current emperor. You can't be caught usurping. There's so much stuff going on in the Forbidden City. My God, today it's nothing but drama. That's why it's a good setting for love drama. She gets exiled, and they want to exile her too, but he wants her in his circle. This is his favorite girl. He's known her since childhood. She probably knows stuff about him that nobody else knows. He trusts her. But they're like, she can't be empress. Are you crazy? He's like, great, fine. Who do I have to marry? Well, he's allowed to keep her as one of his top consorts as long as he marries this woman here. This is noble consort Hui. She devious. She gonna get her own video. All these girls gonna get their own video. But she a devil. But her family put her there to be a devil. She wasn't sent to the palace to make friends. I'll be honest, she is the very definition of I understood the assignment. She is very much I came to do what I'm here to do and no one is going to stop me. And she does it. But for him to be able to have her, he was forced to take her. And Hui knows that. She knows that she's only there because she's a bargaining chip for the emperor. But this lady with a slight smile and smug look, you know who that is. That's Long Hua. She gets to be empress. Her family maneuvered for her to become the empress. She has all the qualifications, stars align. She's the one. But all of these women know he doesn't love them. He's going to do his duty with them and produce sons, hopefully, maybe daughters. But this is where women become valuable. By taking these women in, they become bargaining chips for their family. And these noble women who could become consorts to the emperor, they lead a life very different to other women in China at that time. This is the era of foot binding. This is the era of nushu, of women's writing that men were not concerned with because it was beneath them, where women were kept inside and upstairs in the women's chambers, not to be seen by men who were outside of the family, where women had a very cloistered existence in the family home, where once a girl reached a certain age, she couldn't play outside anymore lest there be risk to her innocence and purity. Then she would be worthless when she got older. That's the age they live in. But these women here, these are women of noble birth. They have value to their families. These women here, they can marry in and up in the royal household. They have the ability to bear the next emperor if they are positioned well enough. That changes their fates completely. There's a line that Lisa C. writes in her books a lot, and I love it. And it says, I was a pearl in my father's palm. It's such a beautiful sentiment. The reason that I deduced there was such detachment to girls and they were written about as being useless branches or a flower for another garden is because every parent knows their daughter is going to grow up and leave them. In marriages that are outside of the palace, there is a period of time, and for festivals and famine and stuff like that, you send the girl back to her natal family. Like if there's no food, go home. Basically, yeah, no, it's terrible. But also, if there's festivals and things, the girls are allowed to go home and see their parents. But in this case, these girls are not going to be seen by their families again unless their family has access to life behind the palace gates. They're going into a life where they're going to be alone, and their parents know it. Their parents know they're not going to see them again. While they're going to get benefits and the prestige of having a daughter who is, within the royal harem, they know they're sending their daughters to a life of a gilded cage. A lot of people look at royal life, especially modern royal life, and think, well, what are these girls upset about? They got to marry princes. You know what? Last time I went on vacation, nobody was flying a drone over me trying to catch a naughty picture. I don't think that's a fair trade. No one is telling me how I'm supposed to feel about the life that I have and that I'm ungrateful because I want to be treated like everyone else. No one's telling me that I should have known what I was getting into. There are worlds that are so different from the way that you and I live. There would be no way to understand what you're getting into until you get into it. No one is trying to pry into my health records because I tried to keep something personal. Personal? Nobody was checking to see if I was intact when I got married. The cost of being royal is a high cost. And the parents that are sending these girls away know what they're asking their daughters to do. So there's almost a funeral of sorts when these girls marry into a house like this. These girls know how to read, men and women's writing. These women can play instruments. They know poetry and history. They know mathematics. They're well spoken. They're graceful. And the majority of them don't have bound feet. Yeah, I know. Right? Some do, some don't. Depends on the emperor's fashion at the time. But a lot of the royal, like this level of royal, unbound feet. Yeah, that's how different they are to the common women. Because these are going to be the women who raise emperors, who raise princes, who raise heads of state. The first few years of that child's life are going to be spent in the inner chambers with their mothers. Their mothers are going to be their first educators. So, uneducated women cannot be the mother of the next emperor, cannot be the mother of princesses who are going to go marry other kings and queens. These two here do actually end up producing children. And because she's the empress at the time, these are considered the legitimate children. And one of them's a daughter. And that daughter is very valuable because her marriage to another kingdom can mean peace between nations. There's a lot riding on their shoulders. Dadgum, they're set up for failure. Imagine being this young lady. Ruyi has no agency over her life. I use the word agency quite a bit. When you hear that word, when I say that people have free agency, here in America, I have agency. That means I have the ability and, nay, the right to decide the course of my life. Yes, as a child, I'm going to be born into circumstances. We all are. And none of us can control where or when we're born. But speaking from a place of I and the culture that I live in, I have the ability to choose the life that I want and work for it. Does that guarantee I'm going to get it? No. But I have the option to try. I have the option to make an attempt at what I would want. These women don't have the choice. Their choice is do what you're told. Their choice is you're lucky that you're marrying into this life. You're lucky that you were born a girl and that the emperor chose you. So whatever happens, deal with it. That's what they're born into. It's a completely different way of looking at love and marriage. And the look on her face in this scene makes me think, I'm doing this for you, not for me. Because you also have to remember the act of taking oneself out is not as taboo in some cultures as others. And she very well could have done that, and nobody would have blamed her. In fact, she's kind of told to a couple of times. If you want out of this, that's the only way. But she's a woman of strength. She is the offspring of kings and queens. She knows what her duty is, and she is going to fulfill her duty. Does she love the emperor? I wonder about that throughout the series because he definitely declares his love for her. And it's real obvious that he loves her more than she loves him. But having grown up in the palace, having had an aunt who was an empress, having been a part of growing up in and around the harem, I think Ruyi knows better than anyone what she would be marrying into. And in the series, when we first meet them, she actually tries to talk Hong Lee out of choosing her to be in the harem. But he's just like, don't you understand how much I love you? I'll protect you. I'll be there for you. Or you going to have 700 wives. And you going to care about just this one? Love is dangerous in the palace. It's dangerous for emperors to focus on one woman because in that clan, those people are going to get favoritism and honors and glory that's not available to other nobles. He means well by her, but he's putting a target on her back. And she knows that. But she also knows that her fate is out of her hands. Whatever the gods decide is what will be. And there is absolutely nothing she can do about it. They have to pretend to like each other. They have to pretend that this arrangement is going to work. We have our Empress, Fuka, number one girl. Look at her dressed in her gold. That's how you know there's a dragon and there's a phoenix. The Empress only bows to two people. She will bow to the emperor, and if there is a dowager empress, meaning mother of the emperor, who might be his biological mom, might not. Complicated. We'll get to it in further videos. She bows to them. There's no one else that she bows to. Then there are the noble consorts. So it's kind of like a company. There's you got your frontline workers, which are these girls standing in the back. That's so bad. You got your middle management. You got your senior directors and your VPs. Well, Lady Fuka is the executive vice president, basically. And then the next noble consorts are the VPs. The most favorite of the noble consorts gets to sit next to the Empress, Ruyi. Now, that favoritism can switch between these, but the Empress is the Empress. And unless the Emperor does something to demote her, she will always be Empress. But we got 80 something episodes in this show. You know something's going to happen. This is his favorite of the consorts. So she gets the seat next to the Empress. These two women are not friends. They go into bed with the same man. She knows she's there because daddy made a deal. She hates these women, but she's not stupid. She, Lady Hui, She understood the assignment. She showed up to play, but she eventually makes a fatal mistake. And we'll get to this poor girl back here. Look at that face. She don't want to be there. She does not want to be there. She was forced to be there. And we'll spend this year exploring the relationships between these women and each of their characters. I have such respect for people who live through extraordinary circumstances that they didn't ask for. None of these women asked for this. They didn't, but they found a way. It's why I admire my own ancestors who were slaves in America. They didn't ask to be slaves, but they found a way. They lived. You know how I know they lived? Because I'm here. And it would be poor repayment of everything they went through for me to squander my life. So I don't squander my life. I try to have a good life. I try to do well by my kids. I try to do well by my husband. I try to impart good lessons into the next generation. I teach martial arts. I teach children. I try to do right by the people I teach at work, that they leave my classes not only educated but inspired, that they have renewed enthusiasm for their work. These are lessons that we have to take from people in history who have lived through circumstances so unlike anything that we would call familiar. I've never lived in a world like this, but I'm willing to study it and learn from it. When we talk about the Forbidden City, it is so vast. If there's anything on my bucket list I'm pretty sure I'll never get to do, but we'll see how things shape out over the next few years, is go to Beijing and see the Forbidden City. I would love to see this palace. This is the largest private palace that has ever been constructed. What it took to construct this palace isn't, I don't have words. We're talking about floating entire trees down rivers, digging out entire mountains full of marble. And you know what's really interesting about ancient Asian architecture, whether you're looking at China, Japan, Korea, down there, even into like Vietnam and Thailand, the vast majority of these mammoth structures were built without a single nail. There are building techniques that are lost to time, and it's still standing 1,000 years later. My God, today. Like, there's only one family left in China who can produce the roof tiles that go on all of those roofs you see. And that's what they do is when roof tiles wear out, they replace them. There's one family now that can do it because it's a lost art. And no one's out there, reclaiming. I mean, that's what the Mechanicum does in Warhammer. They don't invent, they reclaim lost technology. See, everything connects to Warhammer. This place is a maze. It was built to be the center of the heavens because the Son of Heaven resides there. So it is the grandest, most opulent palace that has ever been constructed. But something I want you to notice here, even in its construction, there is ceremony, there are rules, there is a way to show up and be. Do you see this in the middle? What do you see? There's three doors here. Why three? Well, there are entryways into each section of the palace. There's the front gates, the first courtyard, the inner courtyard, where all the grand business takes place further back, further back. And then you have all the private palaces of the family. You know, it even with a map, finding your way around here would be a challenge. But those three gates are very representative. They tell everyone who they are. Remember, we're talking about pure Confucian society. The reason Confucianism became the societal um, map of choice was when the first emperor Yongle united the disparate tribes and lands that became what we call China today. Um, there was no order. Europe was the same way. Europe was barbaric. Like, you want to talk about a society that's just like, read about Europe before its modern version of monarchy. Like, it was horrifying what was going on in Europe. But China, the different tribes, just war, chaos, and Confucianism brought in an order to society, and that order was put into the very buildings, the fabric of housing for the royal family to be that example to the rest of the nations. So these three doors, three staircases, why three? Well, this center center staircase, center door, center door. And then way over here, these side doors. Guess who gets to go through the center door? The emperor and his empress. That's it. Just by virtue of what door you enter through tells you who you are. Even though you might be the favorite, if you're not the empress, that's not your door. And Long Qua can hold that over all those girls. Doesn't matter if for the past month he's been, bedding it up with one particular concubine. She's the only one who goes through the center door. She's the only one that doesn't have to bow to them because they all bow to her, but she doesn't bow to them. The hierarchy in bowing tells you where you are in the society, in the household. And the household order must be preserved above everything. You want to watch a movie that talks a lot about that? Watch Curse of the Golden Flower with Gong Li and um, Chow Yun Fat. It's one of my favorites. It is not an action movie. It's definitely a drama, but it's so much about a young lady who was forced to be a wife, and she bore sons to the emperor, but she was not his first wife. And he cares more about keeping the appearance of the family, and then she tries to um, basically have a coup and get that emperor off the throne. But yeah, you have to watch it to see what happens. But it's a really good dialogue about the importance of the order. The other wives and concubines have to go through the side doors. The top tier servants, they might be able to go through the side doors, maybe. But what does it take to even be a servant? There are male servants, there are female servants. Female servants can wander freely throughout the inner palaces. The men can't. If you're going to be a male servant that's close to one of these women, guess what you can't have? Yeah, that. Um, Castration. Usually, it would happen to a youngster to make it less traumatic, although I'm not sure how that happens. If you think just women suffered, everybody suffered. It's like the emperor of mankind. Everybody can be sacrificed to the golden throne. All can be fodder for the ruinous powers. Everybody can be sacrificed for the imperial seat. So to be a servant in the inner chambers, you'd have to sacrifice your manhood, become a eunuch. And just like the daughters that were given to the palace, people who could not feed their sons or wanted another way to get power. Maybe their son wasn't particularly gifted in the scholarly arts or the warring arts, but dadgum, he could carry a bucket of water. Send him to the palace. Yeah, I know. He might rise, he might not. We're going to talk about some of these eunuchs as well as we explore. So, just some images of the grandeur. This is the best image I could find of the throne. This is where business happened. And if the empress was present, notice this is a giant screen. The empress would have to be behind that because the women of the harem were for the emperor's eyes only. The eunuchs could see him, the servants could see him, the imperial guard, if they were around, might see them. But the imperial guard are not men who are unmanned. They're still manned. So they could only get so close. The empress would have to sit behind the screen because they were not to be seen. And one of the things of Chinese culture that I also actually find quite beautiful are these beds. These beds are like rooms unto themselves. And in high-born families, women would be gifted from their mothers a marital bed. And that bed is basically a room unto itself, and it's where the future grandchildren should be conceived. And when one of the harem were brought to the emperor, they were brought to his big ornate room bed. Curtains are drawn, and then the room itself is shut, and then, get to making princes, basically. But there are so many ways this looks within the imperial palace in one of the harem chambers. This might have been what one of them came to every day. It's gorgeous. But it's a gilded cage. Don't let the opulence fool you. Don't let the grandeur fool you. Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's lovely. It's beautiful. It's a prison. This is not a space where you get all the comforts of home because you're just so great. No, it's a cage. This comfort comes with a price. Well, I could do it. I don't know if I could live a life where I'm never going to see my family again, where I can't choose what activities I like, where I'm always just going to be on display and have to be perfect all of the time. These are women who aren't allowed to make a mistake. Their job is to entertain the emperor, to make him happy all the time. I don't want that job, but they have to make society with each other. As we explore these women, and of course, we're going to talk about Ruyi first, and she'll probably get a couple of videos. And she's so smart. She understands exactly the world that she's married into. She knows who to keep close, who to keep at arm's length, and who not to deal with at all. But even just looking at this scene here, one, costumes, my God, today, I'd wear any of this. The kipao is one of the most elegant garments ever created. It doesn't really show a woman's figure, it is to elevate the face. It is garmenting that is framed for the face. That is absolutely beautiful. Just this is supposed to be the focus, not all of this. Just respect. But look at their hands. You see that? This is why I chose to do my nails, which by the way, Mooncat. This is why I have to do my nails at home. Every color at the salon is another $25. I like to have I've got 2 colors on my toes. I have 5 colors on my hands. I need all the color. 3 colors on my hands. Um so yeah. Anyhow, but these here, that is a representation of their trappedness. Women of royal high birth did no labor, no physical labor. They don't carry buckets of water. If a woman got expelled from the harem, or kicked out or sent to the cold palace for any reason, she'd have to cut the nails that are under here. These are nail guards because you need this to carry a bucket to ride a horse. They don't do any of that. They can use these fingers to eat because you can chopstick like this. They can use these fingers to eat, sew, write, paint, play an instrument. But no, these have to stay here. While they're gorgeous, they're a symbol of the life that they have, that they are not free, that they're not allowed to make choices. Even the hairstyles. To do hair like this takes hours. The geisha in Japan, when they're Maiko, when they're just training to be geisha, their hair is done and it is plucked and pulled and put back together and waxed every week. Or is it every 3 weeks? I forget. But yeah, and they have to sleep on this like peg under their head to keep their hair from getting messed up. When they're older and they're full geisha, they get to wear wigs. This is their hair. So even sleeping has a ceremony to stay this pretty. God forbid you get sick. And lucky women will produce a baby. This emperor is unique in his portrayal, because he even values his daughters. When he has to send his oldest daughter off to be the wife of a Mongol lord, he does so with sadness because he knows he's sending his daughter to a much different life than she grew up with. He actually loves all of his children. And for that, this emperor I got some respect for. But every one of these girls wants to be the one to bear him the son that's going to be the emperor. Discussing these ladies over the next few months is going to be really interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you like this format, let me know. I think I'm going to keep doing it this way if the algorithm blesses this format. But I have so much respect, um, for the history of this life that they were able to survive and that their stories live on. And I think there's a lot to learn from them. So, a different kind of love story for Valentine's Day. And I hope you enjoyed it. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next one.